He's whiny.
Yeah, like he sounds like such a bitch. As I was flying back this weekend, and that obese fat woman dropped her iPad on my watch and dented it, and I was sitting there, I was flying back wearing a suit, and I realized if I stood up and started screaming, "You fucking fat bitch, you dented my Rolex," like in a suit repeatedly, people would have filmed that, and that would have gone so fucking turbo viral. Like that actually, and then after, like at some point in that, I could have said, like, "Do you know who I am?" Like, I'm Lucas from like the Verse and Lucas podcast, while like berating this woman for denting my Rolex. Like, dude, we would have gone so fucking viral, man.
Yeah, damn.
I have these like visions in my head, and that time the main reason that I didn't do it was because I was like hungover and I just looked like shit. No. So like I was thinking like, but I 100% would have done it. Like I need you guys to understand that like I am actually such a disgusting clout fiend that the only thing that stopped me there was like vain personal reasons, right? If I had not been hungover and I had showered that morning, I didn't just have like bedhead and shit, I 100% would have been the biggest asshole that anyone really has ever met, purely for attention.
I mean, hey, listen, that all goes right into the pocket. So actually, it wouldn't have been a bad idea.
It would have been amazing.
We would have at least gotten...
The other thing is, like, again, like I may have had like bedhead and shit like that.
That makes it better, though.
Like
a podcast where bedhead is expected, you know.
But I was like, I looked pretty decent in the suit. We're not gonna lie, that was probably my best fitted suit.
Yeah, we definitely lost 2 opportunities now, but that means 3rd time's the charm. That's my hope.
Well, I mean, the important thing to take from this, I think, is that every day we have a new opportunity, right?
Every day is a new opportunity for virality. That is very true.
Like there's always something you can do that can be so annoying, so grotesque, so like spiritually repugnant that you can farm it for money, right?
Yeah, look at Growing Daniel. You know?
Oh my God, yeah, so fucking true.
You know? All it takes is one major fucking, publicity stunt and you're in. So, we just got to keep our eyes peeled is all. I think we got this. I should have, I'll keep, now I'll have to like embrace the cloud chaser within me to find ways to create.
Have we ever not been embracing it?
Well, I'm more of like an online cloud chaser. In person, I like stick to myself. I mind my business.
In person, I mean, you've seen me. Like when I have a story that I know is funnier than other stories, I like raise my voice while telling it so that everyone around me can like listen in on it. Like I'm really a disgusting person.
I'll do that in conversation, but like in public, it's the New York City's too ingrained in me to like not make a scene. Yeah. Well, you can make a scene, but like ignore. I don't know. Just kind of do your own thing. Like mind your business. So I'd have to override a little bit of programming, but I think I can do it.
Well, I think another thing that would be really fun along this lines is like attaching the heart rate monitor to myself or you or anyone really, and tracking our heart metrics as we podcast, right? Like the HRV, the beats per minute, all of this other stuff. Now, if we had just done this now, obviously, we would have experienced a sudden spike after my nose got clogged and I started sneezing and shit. That also I think would have been really funny, right? Like doing a bunch of like cocaine or amphetamines or something on stream, and you just get to see your shit get fucked up. Like, you just get to see us dying.
I used to do that.
Yeah. It also, though, I bet it helps us find when the funny parts of the podcast are to clip, because that's probably where a heart rate spikes.
Yeah, that's true. Pokimane used to do that. That was like there's like Pokimane cocaine compilations. She would she would kind of play it off because she's like kind of cutesy. Well, there's like she had a coke problem. She would just like subtly like go, well, not that subtly, but bend down and like sniff the table and come back up and she's like back to streaming. Yeah. People forgot about her old days when she was a fucking degenerate. Now she pretends. Now she's like rich and like does like business ventures, and she's like, oh, I'm cute.
I do think it's funny. I do think
N-word and doing cocaine.
Like, make their money by like streaming with their tits out. And then at some point, this gives them enough money to become like a legitimate like venture capital investment firm. And
Yeah.
then suddenly they start putting more and more of their tits away and like trying to gradually like erase more and more of their nudes from the internet. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
always this really funny.
Yeah, she is the like the fucking like commander in chief, the quintessential example of this. She used to be so degen, and now that she's got like $100 million plus, probably way more than that. Honestly, I would say actually definitely way more than that. She has like a little investing firm. Yeah, she thinks she's fucking hot shit now. She still streams weirdly enough. I would not stream ever again, but that's just me. I'd be like, oh, it's been real, guys, but I'm a fucking beast,
I've been talking to a lot of people that have been making me reconsider like because there's a point in life where you imagine, right? There's a number that you imagine hitting, I'm sure, where you think like, if I have this much money, I'm simply not going to care about this anymore, right? Like I'm not going to ever do anything that exposes myself to risk ever again if I hit this point, because why would I? It just doesn't make any sense. Like I'll be set for like I have dynastic wealth at this point, right? And every time I meet somebody who is at one of those points, they give me like a very compelling list of like 20 reasons why like like 750 million isn't enough, Lucas. And I'm like, oh fuck. Like it's over. Like
I'm fucking not gonna make it. Yeah, that's also the thing too. The thing that makes you a lot of money, you probably like doing, and it's
that's
kind of
also
like
where I was going to go. Right, is you
like
are in it for the
net.
love of the game, and this is very true about myself too. Like I look at what I've been gradually iterating my life towards, and it's like the things that go on regardless of where the Lucas equity curve is in terms of my like net worth up or down. Like the one consistent thing that changes month over month over month is I fucking love what I'm doing so much more, and I'm getting so much closer to just like basically what I would do in like an ideal my life is turning into a video game, right? Like this is like the absolute optimal way for me to spend my time as just like a leisure thing. And it just so happens that there's like money to be made from it, right? And I think that's what these guys making like 750 million or whatever. Like I don't think they're like rise and grind. Like I hate doing this, but I've just got to. Like they wake up and they fucking love it, dude. They love cutting deals. They love giving like subprime mortgages to like low income Americans. They love finding like. So you know what I was thinking about today was there was this group that came around. They tried to sell the barber that I was at. They tried to sell them chocolates. You know that world's finest chocolate company? Did you ever do that as a
No,
kid? So
no,
they
I never did.
basically what they do is they go to schools and they say, okay, we will sell the parents these big boxes of chocolate that have like all these
Oh,
different types of chocolate bar in
wait
them.
1 second. I have to cut. You have to stop you for a second. Wait, can we pause? I have to upload this thing. I'm getting harassed in Slack right now.
Oh yeah.
1 second.
No, I remember what I was about to say. Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Fuck
We love
me.
it.
So there's this company called World's Finest Chocolate. What they do is they sell these big cases of chocolate to the parents of school kids, right? And these school kids buy them because the goal is that their kids are going to go out and they're going to sell them door to door. And if a kid sells like 4 boxes of chocolate, they get like some $3 shitty toy, right? Like there's some big ceremony where they announce like who the best sellers in the class were. And I was thinking about this and like I remember engaging with this as like a 6-year-old or whatever. And I was like, I have to beat everyone. I have to sell more. But now I'm engaging with this as like an adult, and I'm realizing, holy shit, what an insane fucking business model. These guys went out and they deputized all of the kids, all of the school kids, as associate salesmen, right? Like they're basically middlemaning every kid who would ever make a lemonade stand, right? Except it's even funnier than that because they're giving them the lemonade stand, right? They're giving them the franchise that the kids are then going out. And so these
franchising.
Yeah, and they're paying these kids not through commission, but through like clout amongst their peers and weird, shitty plastic toys, right? Like they literally are probably giving these kids like 0.5% of the total profits of what they're selling. Like
yeah, absolutely. It's basically nothing. And also, I'm sure they cut a deal with the fucking manufacturer for the toys.
Yeah. So I was just like, holy fuck, what an insane, genius business model. And the other thing is that they named their company World's Finest Chocolates, which is just like, it's like if I named myself like, oh yeah, that's Lukas Big D, right? Like, it's like, it's not illegal. There's nothing against it, but it's just like, it's so in your face. But like, because these are 6-year-olds, they don't understand that it's like, it's not actually like the world's finest chocolate. It's just a company calling themselves world's finest chocolate, right?
Yeah.
Like the difference between like an LLC submission and the actual descriptor of the company doesn't get made in a 6-year-old's brain. They just go around selling this is the world's finest chocolate. And like, it is. Like they're representing it accurately. It's just like, holy fuck, man. What a deal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like, this when you see like the best pizza in New York. Weirdly enough, you're allowed to just say whatever the fuck you want, as long as you're the name of your company.
Yeah, as long as you incorporate as that. I don't know, man. I think whoever came up with that is probably like because this is the same thing that you deal with. I'm going to peel back where if this is going to get into a little bit of doxy territory, but this is the same thing that you deal with female associates and female like associate salesmen. Is a lot of time they're very willing, eager, they're happy, bouncy, they have a lot of energy. But what they don't have is a sales structure, right? They don't have the format that they need to follow to go out and actually like either form the company or like pitch it to you. So if you give them that and you lower the barrier of entry down to basically like repeating off a PowerPoint, suddenly like the number of willing like female sales associates you have gets increased by like 20 times. Right. So that's what they did with all these kids. Now, all these kids, maybe they didn't all want to go make a lemonade stand. Maybe they didn't all want to go source chocolate and sell it on the side of the road by themselves. But like when you give them the system to do it and you make it this big public spectacle at their school, suddenly all of them do want to do it. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, you got to take advantage of like the social. I don't know, like the social.
You got to lower friction in all aspects of life. Right. Like this is basically in all big, I want to say basically every big invention for the last probably century has basically been reducing friction, right? Like, I mean, think about like the fucking iPhone.
What do you mean? Yeah.
It's like the whole concept with the iPhone was that you lowered the friction of getting online from having to sit down at a computer desk in like the library or in your house to like you're always fucking online, right? Like that was why the iPhone was like a big deal. It wasn't like apps or whatever. It was that it lowered the friction for the average person to use the internet.
Yeah, exactly. There's actual there's no actual technological achievement that really happened. I mean, other than the screen, which I guess is like very tactile. But ultimately,
I will say that like glass touchscreens, the capacitive touchscreens instead of the fucking shitty like plastic resistive ones. It wasn't like Apple invented them, but thank fucking God, Apple made everybody realize we cannot be dicking around with resistive touchscreens anymore. Those things were so like they just made you feel so impoverished using, right? Like you press them, the screen flexes, they get scratched up by like your fingernails because they have a Mohs hardness level of like 3.2. Like it was just so fucking bad.
Yeah, no, those were horrible. And that's why back when we used to use stylus for every touchscreen, those were fucking brutal.
Yeah, those were extremely bad.
I like a stylus. Like I like a stylus, and from like it was a way to transition people from writing on paper to digital. And I guess obviously we use styluses now on an iPad. It feels very nice, right?
Oh yeah, I was going to say it wasn't like. The phone that I'm going to be getting is going to have a stylus fucking built in, right? Like I've always gone for the phones with the styluses built in if I've had the option, right? I am definitely this dad core level of give me the fucking stylus, bro. It doesn't always help you out that much, but there will be a time where you'll need to sign like a PDF over you'll need to sign a PDF and you won't have your computer, right? You'll be like in the airport or like in a terminal without like taking off. You can't open up your laptop. And you're using a different program than you normally use to sign it, so you don't have your signature saved, and you need to like write it in or something like that. Or you will be like editing a photo, and you need to make like some really fine scribble out. And it's just really fucking nice to have it that like 2% of the time when you actually need it. But they're so good now, yeah. Because the previous styluses were basically like it felt like the screen itself was like flexing. The stylus itself was made of like recycled like water bottles or something. Like everything about the experience felt god awful. Now we've figured out at least like how to replicate feeling like a pen, feeling like you're drawing on something solid.
Yeah, you're drawing on something solid, but it glides. Like it has like the also the other thing is the I don't know what not the feedback, but like the actual like the I guess like the pen tool, the actual like brush on the screen. They've got they match pressure similar to a pen, which I also really like now because when there's a little bit of time delay like it used to be back in the day or this that, or the other, it just doesn't.
Or it would do that thing where it would like only update after you'd drawn like a given length of line,
Yeah,
like you'd have to draw like an inch before it would finally fill in and update and refresh the screen.
I hated that.
That was so bad.
You fucking Zoomers have no idea what you had to do, what you missed. You guys missed all the fucking. It was like very ambitious technology. We don't really have ambitious technology anymore. Like, we've
entered the refinement culture era.
Yeah, we're deep refinement culture. But ambition is great and all, but the first versions of like VR, everyone just get nauseous or like fucking stylists and like all kinds of stuff. And we're just dog shit. But yeah, no, we've certainly refined all those old ideas, but I haven't seen a new idea in a while.
Do we want any new ideas?
Kind of.
There's one new idea that I want, but I mostly am.
What idea do you want?
Huh?
What idea do you want?
I can't say. I was gonna launch into a marketing pitch for something, but we're too far out. We'd be giving too much details, away. I think. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm trying to think of a new idea I'd want. Smell-o-vision. I was promised smell-o-vision. Smell-o-vision would change the world, would revolutionize the world.
I don't think it's going to revolutionize the world. I think it's actually exclusively going to be used in like sex toy industry.
Oh, I was also thinking like dating. Like if you can get smell in dating apps, you can just bypass all the other bullshit. Just give it a little sniff, and now if
do like pheromone matching.
Yeah, pheromone matching. That's powerful, dude.
So I think the issue with this though is that I think people act like there's some really complex like matching up that goes on with pheromones and like, oh, like you need to find like your specific. I don't think it's like that. I think actually what goes on is it's like 10% of people have good pheromones and then like 10% have like okay ones. And then 80% of people they don't. They just smell like shit. And like those 10%, it's going to like literally recreate the incel meme about like the 80-20 distribution.
Well, I don't know. Well, maybe I think that's possible, but also there's also the whole like, what's the word they use? Like your people in your friend group smell similar to you. There's like a tribal smell thing that kind of happens.
It's like a colony of feral cats. You all rub up on each other and get your scent glands all over each other.
Like also,
is it okay? Well, this is what I'm asking: is like, do your friends smell like you because you select friends that smell like you, or do they smell like you because you're all like in some sort of like SF polycule where you're in close?
No, we self-select. Like we are, like when they do, they might be cringe studies. That's how it typically is. But when they've done the studies, we self-select.
This sounds like an IELTS study. I'm not gonna lie. Like
this is a study reputable. I learned it in college. I didn't learn it, in Twitter, which I don't know if that makes it more or less reputable. But effectively, there's like whatever. That when they could do like the matching of scents, we kind of self-select because it's not so much that we're like conscious of it, but we're kind of just like you're like, oh, you're more pleasant to be around. Effectively, but I do know that it's a lot more subtle of a mechanism now that we like shower and bathe a lot. But if you listen to like watch like Survivor or like testimonials from those shows like Naked and Afraid and shit, they're like after a few weeks when you're like not showering, like we were actively repulsed by the other team, and that's more like the cat thing where you're rubbing up against each other.
Yeah.
But there was like the smell of the other competitors was so like revolting to us. And like it actually like solidified the tribal team dynamic, which so I imagine this was a far more pronounced effect back in the day. But that's my speculation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not really speculation. We know it would be more pronounced, but it's probably like it's definitely more subtle now. That's my speculation.
Yeah, I guess it would be more subtle now. I wonder if it's also like, you know how if you look back at pictures of people from the 60s, there are types of faces entirely that you just don't see now anymore.
What do you mean?
Like there will be like physiognomy that doesn't exist, right? Like extinct physiognomy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you think that same thing exists for smells? Do you think there are like extinct pheromones and we'll never be able to know because we've never been able to record that with like a video or a photo?
Almost certainly. I would say that's near certainty, yeah. But also, I think with smell,
then I also start wondering how much of that is based on like bacterial colonization.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
I think it's like with smell, we can also not only like just whole like cultures are different, but we're also probably manifesting new smells because of our diets and stuff. Like we probably smell completely different than people in the 20s.
I hate this meme that everybody does of blaming like everything on gut biome. So I'm not trying to do that.
No, this is more skin biome, if anything. But also, like your diet would affect.
Well, okay, you get what I'm blaming it on any sort of bacterial biome, right? Like we've gotten to the point where we're actually like totally overlooking like genetics in favor of like, well, what bacteria, bro? And it's like it's like this weird like dissident right wing version of blank slateism that's always been like, I don't know. It's
definitely true. But also, I think that like, it's hard for, especially in the realm of smell, to not explicitly include your biome, because I feel like that's explicitly what it is, right? Like, the things that make you have BO or like bacteria or whatever, or smell bready. It's like yeast. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely like overplayed as a general trend. We absolutely at least on Twitter, overestimate its effects.
Yeah.
Well, we're enlightened. We're transcendent. We would never do such a thing here on the Verz and Lucas podcast. Absolutely no, not ever. We attribute things to genetics and your birth order predominantly.
I mean, it does get weird because you like, you could go and you can do a study and you could say, oh, well, this person has this, and this bacterial cultures in their gut. And so we've determined that this is all being influenced by those cultures, right?
Yes.
But also, like, who's to say that your genetics aren't influencing what bacterial cultures can survive based on the specific chemical makeup of like what like, like what acid level gets released by your stomach, right?
Oh yeah, that's all absolutely involved. I mean, also you got to consider like I also like I have like I feel like I don't know, this is where like the depth of my knowledge is reaching, but I feel like some people are more prone to certain imbalances in their biome, and I don't think that's diet. I think that's like what you're saying, like your natural secretion of XYZ or your pH level from your bile or whatever the fuck. Like I think that would inherently come with like having different smells would be different. Like, if there's like a natural smell beyond just your dietary biome or whatever the fuck, then it would have to be, it would have to influence like the rates of these different colonies. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that, like, that would have to be genetic is what I'm saying. But smell is a hard one too, though, because we don't really know a lot about it. Like we know about smell, but there's not like we don't know like the fundamental unit of smell, for example. Like we understand taste really well. We can like mix smells.
Do we understand taste well?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty simple.
It was my understanding that like taste and smell are really intricately tied to the extent that like the main issue that all of these fake like the fake meat companies and whatever are having is that they need to replicate the smell also, or else like they can have something that is literally like it is exactly the same in terms of like flavonoids and shit that you're eating.
If it doesn't smell the same, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
No. So, and I say we understand smell, I mean that. Sorry, when I say we understand taste, I meant like the actual taste buds more so than like the smell part. The smell part's the complicated part. We could do like artificial flavors fairly well now compared to like previous. Like the food chemists are getting pretty good, but yeah, there's definitely like some key aspects to smell that we have no idea how to manipulate. It's a little more elusive than the other senses, but also it's kind of makes sense since it's like such an intuitive sense. Like there's not like, and we've lost a lot of the language for it, or maybe we never had it because it's really hard to describe.
it's another one of those, honestly, that like, it gets back to the basic question of how do you know that the green that you see is the same green that everybody else sees?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it would be internally consistent, right? Like everybody sees green as things that are green to themselves, but like green could actually be a totally different thing to me or you or whoever, right?
Yes.
And 100%. It's sort of the same for like taste and smell. Like what if nobody actually tastes or smells anything differently? And whenever you ask anybody like what their favorite flavor is, it's actually the same flavor that they're perceiving, but it's like it's just a difference of like what your body detects that flavor as. This is like some stupid like LSD like weed.
I would say that actually is probably the case though. I would say that smell, if I had to guess, smell is far more objective than like vision. I would, or like even if you process it differently, because let's say you have like whatever the rods and cones version of smell is, like let's say you have less of a range to process, like I would say that the fundamental aspect of smell is objective. I like that seems like, especially when you got to consider like smell is a far older sense. I mean, like, or it's more pronounced in other in other animals. If it wouldn't be such a pivotal sense for other animals if it wasn't so concrete. So my suspicion is that one's like one of the more concrete ones. Whereas like taste, I'm pretty sure. I mean, the part where the way that taste differentiates itself from smell in that sense, that's absolutely subjective. Otherwise, like some hot food, like spicy food, doesn't even register to me beyond below a certain threshold, and like other people are like crying, So that one's definitely like about internal, either perception or inconsistency or whatever. Colors, obviously, there's a little bit of a cultural aspect. They say, or like a language aspect, not a culture. Like your language adds to whether or not you can see a color. But there's debate about that because there's like the wine sea thing in the Iliad, and there's that African tribe who can't see blue or something, shit like that.
There's got to be some way. I'm thinking now, actually, I think there should be a way to determine that the way that you see green is the same as I see green. I actually bet that if you were to hook two people up or subject them to like infinite tests, I bet you could figure this one out. Just thinking about like the structure of the eye and brain and how that stuff works. I don't know if the same could be said about taste because I don't know enough about that. Like I know more about eyes. Smell definitely is really fucking weird too. Like whenever you look at like I don't know, I visited a lab actually a while ago that was trying to replicate the attempts to make some fake shit smell like real shit. And it's like they have like 4,000 different vials of like volatile compounds that they're spraying in like ratios that like they were telling me that they weren't random ratios, but like it sort of felt like they were random ratios, right?
The smell stuff, those food chemists and stuff, they're doing like, it's unironically just like old school alchemy. They're not even like,
that's basically that's the vibe that I was getting, was that this was like, you guys are doing you're brute forcing this and you're trying to like hand wave it away, but like I see through you. Like there is no process to this. You're brute forcing this. You have one or two employees who essentially are like wizards that you found and hired, and you have them use their hound-like noses to like direct you in some way, but like outside of this, you have no fucking clue what you're doing.
It's 100% brute forcing, especially when you got to consider like the way we describe smells. It's just so like, because we don't have the language for smells properly. Basically no language does, but especially English, I think might be worse than a lot of other languages. It just makes it very like how the fuck do you describe it? You have to just have the savant, like your savant perfumer, who just like spends his whole day sniffing shit. Otherwise, you have no fucking clue.
Well, and it's also like, funny because like, how do you find the savant perfumer, right? Because you have the thing in tech where everybody wants the dev who has like the high unrealized skill ceiling, and they want to train him up so they can pay him like 100K instead of like 750K to be like the ML wizard guru guy. How do you find the version of that for the smeller, right?
Well, we have super tasters, so they can find. First, you probably want a super taster proper. That's like a condition. where your sense of smell is like significantly more dramatic than other humans.
But like how do you test them? Where do you find these people? Like I feel like they'd just be perverts.
A lot of them actually, you would think they'd be perverts. I don't know if that's always. I don't. The one I know.
Nobody else I've ever met has spent nearly like 1/10 the effort describing smells as perverts. Right? I think just by virtue of them having so much practice, they would have to be better than the population.
So the two that I know are both like they actually have the opposite. They have like really high disgust. Typically, it makes them have high disgust response.
That's interesting.
Because
maybe my sense of smell sucks ass.
Yeah, I think So typically they have a high. Well, at least especially in my experience, I don't know if that's. And I know that when they're younger, they definitely do. But I have two super taster friends, one of which is a chef. So ultimately, it worked out for him. And the other one was like a picky eater until he was like 30.
Two paths. Which path, yes. Western man? Like
exactly.
You can become a chef, or you can become just a huge bitch that annoys everyone who you hang out with forever for the rest of your life.
But he had like weird superpowers where like, he walks in the room and he can like smell that you're like weird shit. Like he's like, oh, I know you ate such and such yesterday, and you're like, or last night, and you're like, what the fuck? Why do you? He's like,
have you considered that he's cold reading? Like this is the sort of thing that I would look it around for the clues that would tell me this through like non-smell based means or non-taste based means. And I would just like try to do a cold reading all the time to convince people that I had like some super taster skill.
That's something I would do too. I don't know if I have super taster. I do know my brother allegedly is high on the scale when they did the testing for him. But I think when I'm like smelling people, a lot of it's subconscious cold read. I don't know if it's all smell. I feel like it's smell. I think I have a pretty strong sense of smell, but I don't actually know. I should get this tested.
I don't know if I have strong, but I would like to think that I have a discerning sense of smell, right?
Discerning. I like that better. Discerning sense of smell. I definitely have a discerning sense of smell, whether it's strong or not.
Right. My preferences and tastes are immaculate, but like I don't know if I'm smelling them stronger or more weakly than other people.
That's the thing too. Whereas like, because I like bitter food, right? So I would think that would make my sense of smell more complex. But ostensibly, liking bitter food implies weaker sense of smell, right? Because you can bypass it. But I just think I have a complex palate and it has nothing to do with whether or not it's bitter or not. I just like the bitter flavor.
We're just out here discerning, man. We're discerning.
I'm just discerning. Yeah. I just happen to like the nuances of a bitter, experience. I like horror movies too. And I like spicy food. I like a little bit of discomfort in my pleasure. You know what I'm saying?
That's an interesting phrasing for sure. I
didn't mean to imply something else there, but
no, I have I'm realizing now there is actually stuff that I did before this weekend that I can talk about that is all very interesting for us, right?
Yeah.
I've been kind of saying everything that I've done for the last few days are sort of off limits because it's all big Lukas secret surprises. Y'all are going to hear about it in due time. But what I did before that was I fucking went to a Korean website and I wired them money using some sort of weird bank wiring app. And they, in return, sent me Botox.
Oh, yeah. I was concerned about that. I was like, these are fucking wires, Judge Shaw.
Yeah, everyone was concerned about that. Everyone actually thought that I was joking about doing this. But so what I did, and for those of you who don't know, you might have been, listening not super closely to the last 37 podcast episodes where I mentioned this. But effectively, I think that Botox can be used as like a nootropic, right? I'm not a doctor, so this is not like Dr. Lukas saying Botox can be used as a nootropic. Listen to me, bros. This is like some retard talking into a microphone saying, guys, like I have this like insane idea, man. But essentially, there was a study where they basically Botox people's frowning muscles, right? It prevented them from frowning. It prevented them from making negative facial expressions. And they realized, these people appear to report less depression and depressive symptoms than people who were given both antidepressants or like an exercise and like diet regimen, right? So like we BTFO'd all of our known solutions for depression by Botoxing people and saying, okay, you're not allowed to make sad faces anymore. I don't think there's any reason this would be exclusively sadness, right? I think you could probably prevent yourself from being angry, happy. You're like make an expression, and then think about what muscles you need to make that expression, and then Botox them. I would imagine that and again, that was not advice. That was rhetorical. Do not fucking do anything that I'm about to say here. Don't take any of this as advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not accredited by any institution or organization or government. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not responsible for anything that you do in your life. But I do think that there's a decent chance that if you did that, you would wind up being able to take like whatever emotion that you were feeling out of the picture just forever, for good. Just wipe that bitch off the face of the earth. And there are some other really weird things that can go on in terms of like, so people with migraines, not all. It's something like somewhere between 70 and 85% of people who have migraines, if they go in and they Botox specific muscles out of constant chronic tension, they can get rid of them, right? There are some blood flow conditions also where people just have muscles that are constantly tense. And obviously the solution to all of this, right, is like, there's some holistic way that you could go, I'm sure, and like massage your traps out or like roll your neck around or do like thyroid massages or some shit. But the fact of the matter is that most people are sitting down for like 10 hours a day, and most people are not doing the 2 hours of prerequisite stretching that you have to do to unfuck yourself from this. I'm not. And like I can standing desk as much as I want, but it's like I'm still going to be spending at least a couple hours a day seated, right? I'm actually doing it right now because my fucking mic stand broke. Sitting here in a chair. Right. I'm using my smaller, shorter one. But I think that it's probably a better investment for most people. And again, not a doctor, et cetera, to just fucking Botox the tension out instead of trying to stretch. Like that's going to be my go-to for this stuff. And so I did it with some like scalp perimeter muscles. And like I have bruxism. I grind my teeth a lot. I go through about $6,000 a year in bite guards. So I was like, well, we can reduce our capital expenses a little bit here if we don't do that. So I Botoxed my jaw some. And it fucking worked. It worked perfectly. I tested it by I had a bite guard and I drew on it in permanent marker so that if I ground my teeth at night, I would grind off the permanent marker and just fucking nothing happened. And I didn't wake up with like a headache. Totally fine. So
that is actually fixing. See, now I'm curious because I want to fix, maybe Botox can fix sleep apnea. So I never have to snore again. Maybe I have to but I might have to inject like my actual fucking throat for that.
There's probably some way you could do it, but you're getting into danger zone there.
Yeah, it's danger zone.
It was also like, I mean, you feel a little bit sketchy because you're like taking these like insulin needles and like poking it into your face while like looking in the mirror, trying to like, because the big issue is that you're trying to measure out like a very precise amount of Botox when you're injecting this stuff. And like, there's no great way to read the number when you're like injecting yourself and like reaching your two arms across your face. You're usually blocking the mirror in some way, right? And I ran into this when I was doing like the back of my head, actually, where I was like, holy fuck, like there's straight up no idea to know how much I'm injecting or where this is going, actually. Like even with a mirror, because like even with a mirror, it's like I have to look like 10 feet back, right? And it's just too far away, like via mirror reflection.
Good thing you've practiced your steady hand with the welding, I guess, because you got me fucked up. I'm not doing all that.
Well, it also is like
interesting though.
It's usually places that aren't super. They're not super sensitive. Like it didn't really hurt going in or anything like that.
No, I mean, the needles is not the part I like needles, actually. Even as a kid, I was always like, oh, let's get a shot.
I would never say I like needles. I find them convenient under some circumstances, a la Botox injection. But
I find it interesting that you could just like put something in your skin like that. That's kind of,
the other interesting thing about Botox too that I didn't realize is like I assumed, like it's a neurotoxin, so it's gonna like be fast, right? But it actually takes like a few days to kick in. Nothing happened for like the first couple of days, and then everything started working and stuff.
What was the effect ultimately?
So I can still use the muscles, and I think this is largely because of my genius gigabrain perfectly dosing them all without knowing what dose I was actually injecting because I couldn't read the fucking marks on the needle. But I think I made it so that whatever dose I had in the needle was probably going to be like a half to a third of what people would have normally recommended for this stuff because I wanted to like undershoot it at first because I'm not trying to like I'm not trying to like beauty filler, like freeze up my face here. I wanted basically to see if I could reduce the amount of constant tension that my jaw is under, because like, it's not just that I grind my teeth and shit. Like I'm fucking cracking these fuckers. Like I have a crown on one of my teeth that I had to get basically because I just like ground it so hard, and like my bite force. Remember when I told you that I got my bite force measured at the dentist?
You have high bite force.
And it was like fucking like 8 to 12 times higher than the average humans, right? So it's either like
just cracking your teeth. That's like my worst fucking nightmare. I mean, everyone has teeth falling out dreams, but like the cracking of my teeth from like pure pressure.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrifying.
That sounds horrible. Yeah.
So I didn't want to deal with that shit. And I was like, maybe we can just turn this down a bit, right? And it looks like we did that. Like I can still use everything. My face doesn't look any different. But it's just like not chronically wanting to tense up.
The question is, I'm wondering is, why are you so tense in your sleep? Like,
so there's definitely an answer to that. And like, if I was actually going down like the proper holistic path here, the solution would come from figuring that one out instead of buying Korean Botox and injecting it in my face. The other funny thing I will say, Botox comes not mixed with saline or any other solution. So they send you this tiny little vial with a bunch of white powder at the bottom.
A vial of botulism.
yeah, and like the powder is like there's such a low volume of powder that like you think that they just sent you an empty bottle with like Korean writing on it. And I was like wondering, like, did they just forget to put the stuff in this one? And then I found a bunch of other people saying the same thing. And they said, no, like, it's just very low volume. And then they said, just put water in there and inject it, bro. It'll work. I promise. And I did. And it worked.
Water. Yeah. You just put normal water? A little tap
No,
water?
I put like fucking
distilled water?
Bacteriostatic saline in there.
Okay. You got the right shit. Okay, good.
I honestly, like, I almost don't want to say.
I know you almost did it, didn't you?
Okay, well, the only reason that I did bacteriostatic saline instead of fucking tap water, which I would have done literally every other time, is that they included it free with the shipment, right? Like I totally would have fucking just used tap water because I've always just used tap water, right? Like every time I ever injected drugs, I used tap water.
Just using tap water is kind of
and like I was putting that shit directly into my veins, right? So that's like very different than a subcutaneous injection. You can be really unhygienic compared to like an intravenous injection because like it's close to the surface. It's not a super vascular part of your body, and there's a good chance that if anything gets fucky, you can just sort of cut it out. Whereas like if people, cut it out, I mean, like junkies get fucked real bad because if they go and they inject something that non-bacteriostatic water that has bacteria in it, even maybe. And then it goes in like into your bloodstream, and like you get a bacterial infection on your heart valves.
It's fucking GG's.
Yeah, like what do you fucking do there? Like, there's no you can't very easily cut that one out, right?
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess you have far more margin of error. Well, I want to see you have more margin of error, at least in the bacterial sense, not in you're still injecting botulism in your face, so you have a limited margin of error.
Yeah, and that also was very funny. So the other thing I did is like I noticed that I have like the frontalis and occipitalis muscles these are the muscles I've complained about so many times. I flex them all the time, holding my glasses up when I wear glasses, holding the bridge of my glasses up against the bridge of my nose.
Right. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And I hit those muscles also. And dude, I gotta say, it's so fucking comfy, man. It is so fucking comfy to just have that shit relaxed, not always like I literally feel like my entire life is so laid back now.
Honestly, if I was wearing glasses all the time, I probably would. That would actually.
I think what would make more sense though is you should just fit your glasses better, because I think it's just an issue of my glasses not fitting super well and me not wanting to go back to the eye doc.
I feel like I mean, I don't have much experience with this because I had glasses for 1 year during puberty, and then it went away. I heard that that's like a fairly common but not that common thing that happens for puberty sometimes.
That's interesting.
I don't know what it's called. It has like a name where like effectively like for like during the years where you're going through puberty.
Ghost myopia.
Maybe something like that. Sounds
I just made it up. It sounds fun.
But yeah, so like I had glasses for like 1 year, and then my vision recorrected. It went back to normal, and I haven't had any vision problems since. But the amount of people with fucking contacts and glasses is just when I actually stop to think about it is kind of crazy. It's like I don't know what the actual numbers are, but it feels like 50% at least, maybe 30 to 40%. but like a lot of people have contacts. It could also be self-selection because
basically everybody is like fucked up visually now, and it's because a lot of what goes on with nearsightedness is not just like a genetic thing. Like certain people may be more or less genetically inclined to it, but if you take the average kid and you have them look at things 8 inches away from their face from childhood, you're probably going to give them myopia.
That makes sense. Now I'm glad my mother limited my screen time. I was bitching about it before.
Yeah.
She was like, don't sit so close to the TV. You can only be on the computer for 2 hours.
It'll fucking get you, bro.
And look at that. Now despite my 12 hours a day of screen time, I still am fine because she was a good parent back in the day. I was supposed to call her today. Fuck. Thanks for reminding me. I will be having call. I haven't talked to my mom in like 6 weeks.
Oof.
Yeah, I'm a bad son in that capacity.
I always wonder, like, what is everyone else's frequency of like calling their mom, calling their dad?
Really
like,
bad
I probably talk to my parents like once or twice a week.
Really?
Yeah.
You're even better than me? God damn it!
I know if you're getting like out communicationed by Lucas, then it's so fucking crazy. Over for you, man. I am like the ultimate ignorer guy. I'm the ultimate like just forget about people who aren't directly sitting in front of me.
It is not uncommon for me to not talk to my parents for like 2-3 months and then just be like, "Hey, he's fine." They're like, if they really want to make, if they like, it's not so much.
I think a lot of that comes down to like they have a faith that you're going to be fine if they leave you alone. Whereas I've realized that my parents think that if I'm not talking to them for like 4 days, they start being like what the fuck is he doing, dude? Like they start getting really worried, and then I come back and I say like, oh, by the way, like this is a great example actually. Like, by the way, like I was injecting like Botox and vitamin B12 supplements.
Yes, for you it makes perfect sense. For me, they know I'm just in my apartment and I forgot to look at the calendar.
Yeah,
like my sister and all of them, they call my mom like daily. Call my mom and dad like daily, and I'm like, all right, that's too much for me. But yeah, like I think now that I'm older and I don't see my mom like in physical reality as much, we've scaled it down to 1 month. We try to do once a month, which for them they're like that's fine for me because he largely kind of keeps to himself and minds his own business, and he stays out of trouble despite being a degenerate. Also, they know they can always look me up. They just Google me. So they can find out if I'm dead or something.
I really scared the shit out of my parents this last like year because they'd call me and it would be like, I'm in Korea, like I'm in this state, like I'm in this country, and they'd be like, like we felt safe because he would be like fucking staying still before, and now he's just off like willy-nilly fucking around globally, and things have really gotten out of hand.
I do have I don't know if it's a rule, but I do tell my parents if I change states or like countries, definitely countries, largely states. If I'm like, oh, I'm going to be in California or whatever. That way they're not like surprised if they get like a call from California. Yeah. I'm like dead or something.
I think my parents found out that I was speaking in Lisbon from something that wasn't me.
That's crazy. Yeah. You talk to your parents twice a week and don't tell them you're going to speak in Lisbon?
Don't or do?
Don't. How do you I don't understand what do you talk about in those 2 calls then?
Which 2 calls?
You said you speak to your parents once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Right? But you have managed to do that while neglecting to tell them about speaking in Lisbon.
Yeah, I just talk about whatever. Like I don't usually talk about my mom just tells me like how she's doing. I shoot the shit with my dad about like whatever his work is doing. And then, just say I'll say like some sort of like random, wherever my work or business is at too. It doesn't usually come up like, where are you or what are you doing?
I see. I usually give them the rundown like, all right, I'm not dating this person anymore, or I'm going to do this for work, or this.
I don't even tell them that stuff. And they like, really? they try and ask, but I always like, and you were there when they like forced me out of it, but it's like, you don't really like talking about this stuff most of the time with them because like, I think they have good insights on the people when they meet them. But based on my lived reality is different enough than theirs that if I'm to describe someone or something to them, there's a little bit of a translation barrier, and it's like I would be better off just showing them.
That does make sense. I think because they have given up on even knowing what I do with any of my time since I was like 15, maybe even earlier. They're just like, sure, that sounds good, son. That sounds fun. There's like, hey, it'll work out. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what his job is. I don't know why all of his friends are from the internet, but he seems to be fine. So.
My parents have no fucking idea what I'm doing with. There was a period where they 100% thought that I was like lying. And I think now they've started to realize, okay, so all of those like bizarre, insane stories he told us were in fact true. But now we're forced to ask ourselves, like, what does this mean? And we don't really have the answer to that one yet.
Mm-hmm.
I know definitely that my old coworkers, 100%, or at least my old manager, definitely fucking thought that I was like lying about everything that I said at work, which is really funny to think about.
That's pretty funny to think about. I mean, hey, see, that's also weird. See, you're like inverted because I would never tell anybody shit at work. No one knows anything about me in any job. I'm just like, I show up. I try my best to never reveal any personal details and obfuscate.
Well, I tell all that stuff to my parents too. The main thing that I try and keep away from my parents is just like relationship stuff about people they haven't met. I will tell them basically everything else, right? Or about situations that are like weird and ongoing, where it's like it could put you into an embarrassing situation if you were to make a like a claim one way or the other.
I see.
You know,
maybe yes. I see. Yes. I probably would give no value judgments about the people I mentioned to my parents. I'd just be like, this is so and so.
That doesn't work with me. If I tell my parents someone they haven't heard, they say, what's their first name? What's their last name? Where do they work? Where do they go to college? What do they like to do? What's their favorite color? What's their food? Like, and then if I answer to any of those saying like, I don't know, they say, why don't you know? Aren't they your friend? And then I have to try and explain to them that like, no, like part of being friends with Lucas doesn't entail like, filling out like a gay, like icebreakers college, like English 101 survey about their interests and favorite colors and like what their favorite burger joint is.
Oh, when I had like, I remember growing up, like even as like a kid, like being like 9, 10, and my parents like, oh, who are you gonna hang out with? And I'd be like, oh, so and so, and they're like, the so and so. They ask me those questions, and I'm like, yeah, but like then I'd say something smart ass like, but you don't know them anyway, so what does that really matter, right? And then they kind of, like, I remember in high school, I used to hang out with this kid, Kyle. Kyle's a really common name, so I can say Kyle, and my parents did not meet Kyle until like senior year, or like the summer after senior year. And he was like a normal kid. I didn't have to hide him or anything, but they just see him pull up in his car and I'd leave and go hang out with him. And that was it. It was like, oh yeah, you're going to hang out with Kyle. And they're like, we don't know Kyle, but Kyle seems fine. Could you keep coming home at the right time? And that's about all they asked me question wise. My dad fucking never meets my friends. He started meeting my friends when I was like 25. And I'd be like, oh yeah, my friend's staying in the city and they don't want to go home for Thanksgiving. Can they just come up for the holiday? And he's like, yeah, sure.
Dude,
bring your friends by.
I had a really bizarre like instance like that when I was like, I don't know, maybe 13 or something. I had a bunch of people who I was friends with show up at my door, knock on it, and ask me to come out and like hang out with them and play like Crunch Cage or something, which is basically like Smear the Queer but on a trampoline. And my parents were like completely shocked. They let me go. And then like later when I came back, they basically pulled me aside and said like, we thought that you were lying about all those people. We thought you didn't have any friends. And I was like, wow, that's fucking funny.
That's my parents now. When they were like, when I lived with my parents during COVID, like not the first year of like, after like things started to open up a little bit before I moved to Texas, they were like, bro, you never leave. You never go anywhere. And then like you never, like, first of all, like when you're here, you like are working or you're like chilling in your room and you're like you don't want to, or you go to the gym at like 2 a.m. But otherwise you just stay inside. And then all of a sudden one random day you're like, all right, I'm going to the city. And then you come back 3 days later. And I'm like, we assume you have friends because you don't come back home. But it's weird for us that you have friends, but they never are like visually present ever. So even this is going back probably forever, but definitely now as an adult, my parents are just like, I think he has friends. I don't know his friends. He seems to be social. People seem to like him.
They're on the internet, dude.
Yeah, they're exactly. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, like I talk to them all night, all day online, but that doesn't make sense to them. They're like, how does it count if you're just talking to them on the internet? But So, after 10, 15 years of watching me do this, they've just acquiesced. And they're like,
I fly around enough too that they've sort of accepted it's not just internet friends anymore, right?
Yes. Also, now that they've met like more than one girlfriend who I've been dating, they're like, all right.
When he gets older, he won't sound like this anymore, right?